I ran my wholesaling and flipping company out of a single wide trailer. And I was able to get an unsecured line of credit for 30 grand. My town that I live in just kind of like devastated with Hurricane Helene. After spending 40 grand to get them a really nice fixed up house, and they just kind of stopped paying.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Raspberry Lemonade. I have an amazing guest, as always. We have amazing guests on the show all the time. Please welcome to the show, Michael FitzGerald. How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing excellent, Levi. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, no, thank you for taking the time. And at least at the time of this recording, things have been crazy out there and where you're based out of, right? How are things going over there?
Yeah, absolutely. Things are pretty crazy. So I'm currently out of the mix of everything. So my town that I live in, where my wife grew up, Asheville, North Carolina, has been just kind of like devastated with Hurricane Helene that came through all of Western North Carolina. Asheville kind of being the central hub of a lot of it, and yeah, we've had the hurricane, ton of rain on Thursday. Friday, the winds came in and just started taking out trees and creating all of this flooding in the mountains, which has been kind of unheard of. And I think, a 500,000 year storm for the mountain flooding. So, just a few days without power, out water, all that kind of stuff was enough to kind of have us decide to evacuate down to Charleston, South Carolina, where we're at our house there now. And I'm just kind of regularly getting updates, communicating with everybody that's, can get cell phone service when they can get it, on things that are happening there as they're happening. It's been really cool to see all of the relief efforts from, you know, people in the community and everyone kind of coming together all over, really, to be honest, and then bringing supplies into the area and getting them out and about. And it's really like a ton of just civilian effort. So it's been definitely uplifting and powerful to see. But I mean, I haven't really processed a lot of it yet on what the future is going to look like and getting back in town. So still kind of very much in it and going through it, and hopefully get back sometime in the next week or so to see some people and see, what's happening firsthand.
Yeah, 100%. I'm really glad that at least you and your loved ones are okay. You're kind of away from the danger zone. Seems like, right? Um, and yeah, I mean, to give people a little context of how we know each other, I actually worked under Michael's company for a few months. So that's kind of the connection there. Uh, could you tell everyone, the name of your business, please?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, kind of the bigger hub is Worthy Ventures. The company that you work for, Worthy Offer Team. That's our direct to seller acquisition company, where we wholesale properties, flip properties, acquire properties to put under contract and either assign it to us to hold as rentals, us to flip, or work with other investors that want to take on an investment project and opportunity.
Yeah, 100%. And the culture within the Worthy Offer team, like I have nothing but great things to say about you guys. I've, referred some people over to, your company, especially more like newbie investors who are looking to get their first deal. And, sometimes the best way is to go the wholesale route, right? Acquire a wholesale. And
Yeah.
um,
Yep.
yeah, hopefully in the future we could also do other projects together now with my business and in the video production space. Um, but tell me a little bit about the Worthy Adventures. Like why Worthy? Why that name?
That is a good question. Because Worthy has so many different meanings to different people. Worthy is actually my middle name. So it's a family name. My grandfather was Thomas Worthy, and I was named. I got my middle name from him, and I just had like a really good connection with him. He was pretty foundational with me in terms of wanting to learn about personal finance and wanting to learn about the power of what personal finance can do for you. And when I was younger, I remember one time he gave me a birthday card with, a card in it, wrote out his five most, I guess, powerful books to him at the time. And I didn't know what any of them were. I started, as I got older, I started kind of seeing them different places and picking them up and reading them. One of the ones that was in there was The Richest Man in Babylon. It's just a super simple read, but it has a lot of
Oh,
like
no
really
way.
cool principles in there.
Classic.
Yeah. So that kind of like, sparked an interest in me with him and just kind of like wanting to learn a little bit more about him and that kind of thing. And, the more I learned about him, I learned that he wasn't, necessarily the best father, to my mom for, a while or any of her, siblings. He had a really
Mm,
big problem and battle with alcohol. So he was, an alcoholic for probably the better part of his life, but he got sober way later. And in his process of getting sober, he really kind of dedicated a lot of the rest of his life to service and helping other people get sober. And he also, he had a passion to help people coming into the country learn how to speak English. He moved in and lived in Spain for a while, and he picked up Spanish, and that was where he spent a lot of his time and gave him a lot of a lot of his passion and purpose. And I just saw that being kind of just another really cool connection, seeing somebody who had those many struggles and those many things kind of going on in their life, able to overcome it for one, and then to kind of turn a corner and be able to give back to the people that are in that same spot that he probably was, for so long, that were struggling, and showing them there's, other options and other ways to live your life. And that's why, today one of our core values is service. And I just think that it's so important. And particularly too, like just looking at kind of the event that we're in right now with the hurricane and just seeing all these people come together. I'm not physically there right now, which I kind of hate, because I'd love to just be personally and physically in the space, being able to like use
yeah.
my physical body to serve and volunteer and pass out stuff. But, due to me needing to be out of town and take care of my family right now, it's been exciting for me to be able to serve in other ways and, have access to phone, internet, computer, all of that kind of stuff. I can now kind of serve in a different way to coordinate and put together efforts for people that do have boots on the ground to get supplies into them and to get them passed out. And I mean, that's a lot of what I feel like a lot of people have, just kind of that desire to serve. And it fuels almost like a selfish need, because it does make you feel so good about kind of what you're doing. And it feels like you are fulfilling some level of purpose, in your life and other people's life, and you're making an impact. And, yeah, that's a lot of the impact that my grandfather had on me, and that I want to make sure that I'm sharing with, people that I come across, and instilling kind of those values within our company and people that join our company. And, just putting that, message and that feeling out, into the communities that we work in.
100%. Wow. Then I think you have the perfect name for your business ventures then, because there's so much weight, to that name. And also the synonyms of worthy, right? I think really go a long way and play into how the people who work in these companies feel about how they feel about themselves. So I really like the fact that it's called Worthy Ventures or Worthy Team Offer or Offer Team, I bet. Um, and that's why I love asking that question, because behind the name, like there always is something a deeper meaning, and that's kind of what continues to drive the business owner to give the best customer service, give the best experience to their employees, and just keep everything harmonious.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, as I'm kind of like going through and thinking about different names for the company and stuff, there's parts of me that was like, oh, well, maybe just something a little bit more generic and, that fits for kind of like SEO purposes a little bit better, and less about kind of like a brand or a purpose or anything like that, especially when you're thinking about just like a wholesale company, like so easy to have, a quick cash offer, or, fast home offer, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But I knew that I wanted to build something bigger and a brand around it and a message around it. And, the kind of the wholesale company and the direct to seller company is just kind of one portion of that. And I really like the idea of it all being kind of together under the umbrella of a bigger message and a bigger brand.
Yeah, exactly. So, how did you get into the real estate space just in general? Or have you always kind of been surrounded by that growing up?
No, no, never was surrounded by it growing up. Kind of all I knew about real estate and houses and stuff like that growing up was just that my parents had one. We lived in one. My parents owned our home. And it wasn't really, I guess, until like a little bit later. As I was growing up, I had some friends that you could kind of tell had a little bit more money, maybe than some of our other friends. And one of my friends, I found out that his dad actually owned mobile home parks later on, and I was like, oh, maybe that's why his house is a little different than mine. His clothes are a little bit different than mine. His car might be a little bit different than mine. So I was always just kind of like intrigued of like how other people lived, maybe what they did for a living, how they were able to take vacations and stuff like that. My family we weren't like big on vacations. The vacations we were taking was, due to like me or my brothers, playing a sport and traveling with that or whatever that looked like. But as I was like getting older and working, in my job, I kind of got turned on to real estate like many others through, Rich Dad Poor Dad. And somebody told me about like a little weekend seminar. I think it was like actually it was an evening seminar and it was free. And it was kind of like a selling into the weekend seminar, which cost $100. And this was like 2012. And I went to the seminar over the weekend and I just got like super into it. Like everything they were saying, I was kind of buying it, and I was just kind of like, selling the whole kind of freedom, and I was just excited about it. And I had already kind of, I guess, at that point, learned a little bit about it. I bought my first home to live in the year before in 2011. I rented out the extra bedrooms to roommates, so I was kind of living for free before I knew really what a house hack was or anything like that. Um, but kind of my takeaway from that
Nice.
was, you know, instead of what they were selling and pitching, which is like, hey, go take out, 50 grand on a credit card and buy our education to learn, how to do what we do. I was like, well, I'm pretty confident in myself. And if I commit to something, I'm going to kind of take the action to get it done. So my takeaway from that was, hey, instead of going and doing 50K on a credit card to buy their education, let me see how much money I can get, through some level of loan or line of credit. And actually, I learned this from that weekend seminar. And I went to, the bank that I bank with, Wells Fargo, and I was able to get an unsecured line of credit for 30 grand. And I think that like the hack that they told you to do was
What?
say you need like cash reserves, like you're not even planning on doing it. So it's like, yeah, I need 30K cash reserves, and I was able to get it, and I used it as a down payment for a duplex, and that was it. That was like my very first property, my first rental property. Um, and I, had two Section 8 tenants in each
That's
side,
dope.
and I managed it myself, and I did the repairs myself, and I'm like the least handy person that you could possibly, imagine or come across. But that was all I knew about real estate at that point. So like I wanted to figure out how could I do this again and again and again, knowing that I'm probably not going to be able to go get another unsecured line of credit, say it's cash reserves, whatever. So I would save up, and I'd typically get a sales bonus at the end of the year. So over the next few years, I was able to get a couple more rental properties by saving up to 20% down payment through a sales bonus, end of the year sales bonus. Um, and I liked it, and I was like, okay, this is it. I can just keep working this job I was working. I
If
was
I may,
Yeah.
I was gonna ask, like, what were you doing at the time, and how old were you at the time when all this was going on?
Yeah, yeah, good question. So this was 2013 is when I bought that duplex. I had been working at a company called soccer.com since 2008. And I was a territory sales rep. So I was helping manage uniform ordering for youth soccer organizations all over the Northeast of the country. So basically, I was like working with soccer moms to
Gotcha.
figure out which brand we were gonna like work with and put together soccer uniforms. And it was a sales role, so I would build a territory and manage the accounts and all that kind of stuff, and forecast buying patterns and all that good stuff. Um, but yeah, so I mean, I wasn't making a ton of money. I was, 27 or 28 at the time, I guess. And yeah, I was probably making 50, 60 grand a year. And then I might get a $20,000 bonus at the end of the year. So I wasn't making a ton of money. I was really liked the culture of the company. I was like working with all my friends in the soccer industry. We were going to different events. I was, working out every day at work on my lunch break. We were playing ping pong. We were watching different games and stuff like that. So it was a fun environment to work in my 20s. But I knew that it wasn't like something where I'm like trying to get the next best job there. I was literally trying to set myself
Mm.
up in a way financially to build some wealth while I was there and while I was learning different skills and while I was able to kind of own my own schedule somewhat from an account management standpoint. So where I could be taking calls and making calls and doing different real estate stuff on the side. Um, and then in 2016, I decided to get my real estate license to be able to like save up enough money to ultimately quit my job by like working with, buyers, helping them buy a house, and I'd make commissions and be able to leave from there, which I did. But more so I was able to do by learning about kind of like the power of private money and hard money, and doing my first deal where I was able to refinance and keep a rental without having any of my own cash in it, plus created, 150K in equity in that deal, to where I said, okay, hey, I see the power and the potential here. Let me not stay in this job any longer. That, there's probably a larger opportunity cost for me staying here. And that was when it kind of like forced me to
Mm.
take the next steps.
Yeah, so it wasn't until that point that you were like, okay, it's time to now focus on this. Curious question though. You said you were like 27, 28 when you kind of first started and you had your first rental property and all that. So you were still single at the time, or were you already in the process of, kind of maybe dating who is now your wife?
That's a good question. So let me think about this. So 2011, I bought my house. I was single at the time that I bought my house. 2012, the end of 2011, I met my wife, my now wife. Uh, we dated for about a year. She moved to Durham where I was living, moved into my house, kicked out my roommates, said we can't have roommates anymore. And we got engaged and married in 2013. So in that year, 2013, that's when I bought that duplex,
Wow.
bought my first rental, with her kind of right by my side, going out to the rentals with me, so she's kind of been along for the full ride and, been right there with me. She's probably the biggest reason that I quit my job, the biggest reason that I then went and quit my next job and kind of went out on my own. And she's kind of always been there supporting me and pushing me to the next levels and saying, hey, we can do more, we can be more, we can do this and that. And so it's been a pretty cool, partnership and grow through it.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's the kind of any single guys listening out there. Obviously you got to be one with a vision and working towards it, right? To have something to show for, even if you don't have that big dream yet. But your actions end up speaking louder than words, right? Like your potential mate can see, like, okay, I could see where this guy is, headed, and ideally that partner is going to actually just push you forward to actually reaching that, and maybe even more than you envisioned for yourself. Has that been the case with you and your wife?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember kind of like before I met my wife, it was just my 20s, and I'm just kind of trying to figure stuff out on your own, but you don't have that like really trusted, companion that you can bounce ideas off of and kind of just riff on different things that you're thinking about and outlooks on life and all of that kind of stuff. So, I mean, without a doubt, I am further along and in a spot now than I would be if I, were trying to do it alone or with somebody else or anything like that. Yeah, it's that combined vision together and kind of holding each other accountable and, and keeping, being that support, you know person for one another to really be able to get done what we wanted to get to.
There you go. I love that, man. And I love that, you're sharing this part of the story because, yeah, it takes more than one person to make these things happen. And I hear time and time again that the spouse that you choose has a huge impact on how far you end up getting in your vision, your entrepreneur journey, or whatever it is that you're trying to do with your life. So it's definitely important to choose wisely. With that said, let's move on to a more personal and more in-depth. Um, what was little Michael like?
That is a good question. So I'm the middle child of, older brother, younger brother. And I was kind of the kid that I didn't draw a ton of attention to myself. I kind of like somewhat flew under the radar, I guess you could say. My older brother and my younger brother were a little bit more like, you know, I don't know, necessarily like emotional or like active and kind of like demanded a little bit more attention. So I was kind of the one that could just maybe not get away with stuff, but like, I could kind of like, I kind of not say slip through the cracks, but I didn't have as much focus and attention on me, which I guess allowed me to just kind of be a little bit more introspective of what, I wanted to be doing and all that kind of stuff. But I really kind of excelled at sports, and I got very focused in different sports and soccer kind of being the main one to where I would put a lot of, focus and attention on, how I could get better, how I could push myself to get better. And, that's where I spent, a lot of my time, growing up was just playing soccer, skateboarding, surfing, and, my coastal town and just having fun with friends. But it was really kind of like a specific sport that kind of pushed me to see how far I could take something, how I could improve, how could I put in work somewhere and have that, immediately show improvement and the impact of the work I was doing. I think I took a lot of that into kind of what I do today.
Nice. And what sport was that specifically that kind of taught you these lessons?
Yeah, yeah. For me, it was soccer. I grew up, you know, playing soccer since I was a really little kid. I got really competitive with it, when I was, 10, 11, started playing like a travel team. And then I started getting involved in like the Olympic development program and, really kind of just pushed myself to see kind of the best I could do with it. So that was kind of my chosen sport that I was just super passionate about. And I just wanted to put in more training and see how I could just improve.
Nice. Right on. What is a maybe personality trait or ism that you had as a kid that you still have to this day?
For me, I'd say I was just really determined. You know, I, I was somebody I think that, constantly was just kind of like overlooked, maybe from just not being kind of like outwardly, as emotional as kind of like my siblings. And it was up to me to kind of be able to prove myself in different ways. And I kind of latched on to sports to do that and put in the extra work, and that determination to just kind of be the best and to be able to, get a scholarship and play professionally and do those kind of things. That was where I was really just, that was my goal. That was my passion. And, having that determination to put in the work, when other people aren't. I was never really the most talented compared to other people, but I knew that I could outwork people, and I knew that if I put the additional reps in, I was going to be able to take somebody with a similar level of talent, or somebody even with a higher level of talent, and be able to outperform, just with the determination and work ethic that I would put behind it.
Wonderful, wonderful. How has that trait of determination translated now into the success of your businesses?
I think it's been pretty similar. Where I wouldn't say I'm like the smartest businessman by by any means. I wasn't like exceptionally like gifted through school or got the best grades or just like this super high level of intellect. But what I was able to do was take different things from different people, and be able to now put my head down, work towards accomplishing kind of these clear goals and visions that I had set for myself. Um, and yeah, I mean, a lot of that just kind of comes from sacrifice. And, when you're determined to accomplish certain things, you're willing to sacrifice, other things that your peers are, getting to participate in. And I think that's kind of where I created a little bit of an edge for myself to, be able to go off on my own, create a business, be able to make money from that business and support other endeavors, and support a team and build certain things that I had, as really important to me. Just through kind of putting my head down and doing the work, just through, hey, it's going to happen, or we're going to figure it out. It's going to happen regardless, whether it happens in a few years or it happens in a decade. The determination is kind of what drives you through to get there. There have been many, many times over the past 5 years that I've wanted to quit and been close to quitting, but I said, hey, that's not going to serve kind of the future me and the potential and everything that I've kind of envisioned happening. So let me just kind of put that thought on pause.
There you go. And maybe we can get into some of those stories. That's the next part of the show, actually. We like to ask our guests to share a sour story. So not so great experience or not so great moment, that they've experienced and can share with the audience. What would that be for you? I'm sure you have many stories to choose from, but if you had to choose one to share today, which one would that be?
Yeah, I mean, that is a good question because, I mean, there are, just many stories of, certain things that have happened that, didn't go the way that you either expected them to happen or planned for them to happen. Nothing like, catastrophic, obviously, within business. Nothing that, just big, big losses or anything like that, which I know a lot of people have been hit with. And I think, it says something about kind of my risk tolerance a little bit. Whereas like others, probably made a lot more money than me and grown their businesses a lot bigger, but they've taken on larger portions of risk and they've lost a lot more than me, but they're also, further ahead. So I've had, somewhat of a lower risk tolerance because I haven't necessarily needed to or wanted to just move at lightning speed and have to have all of this right now. I'm very much kind of focused on that long term trajectory of, the wealth building goal and, setting my family and everything up, with people that I want to be around. But I mean, I have had a ton of just my fair share of just crappy situations through real estate. Typically, I'd say they all surround, with rental properties and tenants and certain things going bad. But one recently, and this is just kind of like the somewhat of the nature of our business of as we, market in, different areas where, I'm physically not there. I don't have boots on the ground, with a really good trusted team. As we went a little bit wider in our marketing, I just start buying any and every property that had equity that, I know would make money when we go to sell it. But they also either come with tenants or they make more sense to hold for a portion of time because you see, future, um, opportunity to sell in a few years versus right away. So there's been a couple. One in particular, I bought a rental property, actually fixed it up, put like $40,000 worth of work into it, got it looking really nice, and it was, I just decided I was going to hold it for a little while to instead of taking like the big gain up front because we bought it at a really really deep discount. And I said, hey, you know what? Let's put a renter in there for a couple years, and instead of paying short term capital gains, we can pay long term capital gains, or we can 1031 it into another project. And literally like 2 months in of putting this tenant in there after spending 40 grand to get them a really nice fixed up house and signing a 2 year lease, they just kind of stopped paying. And this is in an area where like I'm at
Oh,
this point I'm
wow.
not looking to manage any of my own properties. I'm plugging property managers in the local areas, and so I was trusting in them to vet and put in a good tenant. And like 2 months in, they just kind of stopped paying, started getting updates of like just them leaving trash bags all over the place, creating like, pest situations. And then finally we got them out, 3 months after they completely stopped paying, and they had done another 40 grand worth of damage to the house. So it's just little things like that where it's more of an opportunity cost for spending your time and attention and resources, where I'm falling back into kind of being like a glorified admin of just, figuring out some of these things on how to get rid of these properties. They just create like a big thorn in your side, and they're a pain to deal with when you have, 1,000 other things going on. And they, at the end of the day, we ended up making money by selling it and, solving the problem. But I mean, a lot of, a lot of painful days in between, just coordinating all the efforts.
Yeah, sounds like it. So there you go, folks. Things do not always go to plan. Right? And there's pains no matter what industry you're in, no matter what goals you have, you're gonna have to go through these growing pains and learning lessons.
Yeah, 100%. I spent several hours yesterday filling out insurance claims for all the Airbnbs that just got hit by the hurricane, and the are flooding and have trees through the roofs and all those kind of things. It's just the nature of the business. Things that you run into, and just you got to roll with the punches, and just know that those kind of things are going to happen, and they're not going to wipe you out, and you can remain even throughout it, and just kind of trust in the process that it's all going to be all right, and things are going to get done. But sometimes you got to spend a good portion of your time just falling back into an admin style role, and handling certain things as they come up.
Exactly. Learning to pivot. I think that's something I hear a lot of business owners talk about. Let's move on to the flip side now. The sweet story. What has been one of the most maybe rewarding moments or experiences that you've had since starting your businesses?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know about the most rewarding moment since starting my business, but anytime I'm kind of like reflecting on different things that have happened throughout kind of my journey of just growing, trial and error, all that kind of stuff. Anytime there's situations where I just feel like this level of, I don't know, serendipity, or just like that, I feel like I'm in the right place at the right time, and just kind of being called to the right thing. It makes me feel like I'm on the right path. And for me, like I was telling you, my friend, his parents, owned mobile home parks, and it always in the back of my mind, owning a mobile home park, that was kind of a path to wealth. And so I always kind of like had that as somewhat of like a guiding light of like, hey, I'm gonna follow real estate investing, and I'm gonna get into mobile home park ownership and all that kind of stuff. And I'd literally be talking to anyone and everyone about mobile home parks and owning mobile home parks. And I mean, they used to call me when I got my realtor's license and I was working in this realtor's office. Everybody just knew me as Mobile Home Mike. That's kind of what they had like coined me as, even though I had never bought a mobile home park, operated a mobile home park, anything. But um, I was telling everybody about it, and I was making all these different connections, and that was kind of like what I was excited about learning all that kind of stuff. And I made this one really great connection with this guy who owns a ton of mobile home parks, all over the southeast of the country. And we really hit it off. And, he was extremely successful, had a massive portfolio. And for whatever reason, he was just like the most humble, kind of giving person ever, and kind of mentored me for a little while just for free, and just kind of like, I don't know if he saw something in me, but he let me come out to his office, ride around in his sweet car, go check out, his different mobile home parks. You know, um, I read his book like right away, and just kind of, asked him a bunch of questions, and he was just really patient with his time. But I knew that he was, looking to scale his portfolio and grow and buy more parks. And as I moved to Asheville, that was something that was, always kind of front of mind was, talking to people about different parks and different opportunities and stuff like that. And I was maybe living in Asheville for like 2 months at this time when another relationship that I'd made mentioned that he knew of a park coming up for sale, off market. And I said, hey, let me kind of get first look at this and, bring it to this guy I know. And I did that, and we put together a really sweet deal. At that time, I was still kind of like working from home, like my kitchen table, and I had two kids in home as well, and it was just impossible to do. So I was also looking for an office, and it just so happened that, found this great opportunity, got a nice finder's fee on the deal, was able to roll that into equity in the property, invested, some of my money into the property as well, and got to be, my minority
Oh
owner
wow.
of this park. So, I served a need and brought some value to this guy, who I just respected completely. And then, he also offered up to me to be kind of the park manager. So for the whole year of, 2019, 2020, I ran my wholesaling and flipping company out of a single wide trailer, in a mobile home park of, 80 residents, where I was the boots on the ground on-site manager while running, wholesaling and flipping company, you know, while getting a free office. I mean, it might not sound like having your office be a single wide trailer is that cool, but this was like a 2019 brand new single wide trailer, and it was cool. It was nice. You go inside this thing, you're like, oh, this thing's kind of pimped out. So that, I got, I was making a couple grand a month just from managing the park. Plus I got a free office space out of it. Plus I got, equity in this great park. And I got the opportunity to invest in, one of the other parks in Asheville that I also managed. So ended up making 4 grand a month managing these parks. Had free office space, learned a ton. And I was actually able to hire somebody in to come help me manage the parks. So I was learning all these different skills. I was, getting to participate in, a value add opportunity of, driving up the forced depreciation of these parks. And, one of the reasons that I really liked being involved in that is because the way that he managed these things was just from like a really kind of servant mentality, to where it's all about improving the communities, all about making sure that the residents are excited for, the place that they get to live, and just making them, not your typical what you would think of with a trailer park, but more of like a really solid, valuable community to be a part of. So that was just like a really good, win-win situation all the way around. Yeah, and it felt really rewarding to be a part of.
No, I like hearing those types of stories where, you find a way to provide value to people. You essentially like just give, 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 and then eventually, that's just kind of like the law of the universe, right? Eventually, something like this comes around, and because you've been in these situations or already have these connections, you're able to make that connection for these people, and everybody gets something out of it. So that's a great experience. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Second to last question here already, man. Believe it or not, we're almost at the end of the show here. If you had to choose your current life soundtrack, what song would that be for you? Just one song.
So that's a really good question too, because for me, it's like music for me is just one of those things where I connect with it, just through pure emotion. So many songs, like I could don't know the lyrics. I don't know what they're necessarily saying or what they're all about, but they might be like just my favorite song. For me, a song that I'm really kind of, it's a vibe. It's a feeling, and a song for me that like brings a bunch of emotion to me. And I typically have like a song a year that is kind of like, what I'm on, and kind of what it makes me feel and all that kind of stuff. And I just got turned on to this group called the Red Clay Strays, and a song that kind of, I was running the other day on my birthday. Typically when I'm like running or training, I'm listening to a podcast, or I'm running with somebody else. And for whatever reason, on my birthday, I was like a little bit out of like my normal routine, anyways. So I just kind of put on the red clay strays in like a little shuffle mode. And yeah, I was going for this run through this like beautiful part of town in the mountains around this lake. It's, September 9th. It's just like the perfect kind of like going from summer to fall. And yeah, I just like kind of hit with like a ton of emotion when this one song came on. It's called "Want to Be Loved," which kind of sounds a little bit funny, but I don't know. For me, it gave me a ton of emotion of gratitude. Like just kind of like I was just so thankful and happy for this place that I was in my life. Turning 40, having the family that I wanted to have. The people that I'm close with. I just finished having a great birthday party that my wife threw for me, just like an all day thing where people came over and hung out at this farm. And I just kind of like was hit with this like big sense of gratitude. And a lot of the lyrics are kind of like talking about just you know what what have I kind of like, am I in the place that I want to be, that I was hopeful to be? What else do I want in this life? And kind of like for me, a lot of that was just like connection, with other people. And I was feeling just this sense of gratitude where like I felt like my parents were proud of me, the person that I'd become. My mom had passed away the year before, and that was like a big sense of things for me to where I was just like, I want to kind of really go all out in life and not miss any level of opportunity, whether it even just be like full emotion in every moment and every connection that I come across. And so it just kind of hit me with like a lot of emotion. Now every time that I hear that song, I just get like super pumped to make sure that I'm like not leaving anything on the table, that I'm putting in all the effort. I'm putting in all that same level of determination that I was kind of early on in my life and in my career. And, it helps me to kind of put that perspective onto things.
That's great, man. I'm not familiar with that band. I'm gonna have to check them out, which is great. I love being, exposed to new artists and to different types of genres of music. I'm definitely looking it up. Everyone who's tuning in definitely should check it out as well. Uh, One last thing, man, but before getting to that, thank you so much for taking the time, to record this episode with me. Um, I feel like I've gotten to know you a little better as well, which is super awesome. Um, Again, you were a great, person to work for. I really appreciated the opportunity of, working in one of your companies in the time that I was there, and just the mindset that you helped your team members. That's why I think that people that work for Worthy, uh, are good people, but you just take what they already have and just kind of push them to see something bigger for themselves. And that's what I got out of that. So truly grateful for that opportunity.
No, I just wanted to say, thank you for kind of everything you did, while you were, with our company, because, it's those kind of, people that come and work with us that I just get super excited about seeing, go on to follow their dreams and passion. And, my goal is to build something big enough to where, those kind of things can fit into our organization. Um, and obviously, like when somebody has this desire and this drive to go out and do something on their own, I never want to hold anybody back from doing anything like that. And I want to instead be like like biggest champion and cheerleader. And, dude, I love seeing kind of like your posts and kind of the journey that you're on, and, building out your company. And if there's anything I can do to, help with any of that, man, I'm all about it, because I really appreciate everything you brought to the table when you were with us. And, just seeing all you're building is pretty cool to see.
Yeah, man. Yeah, 100%. I would love for us to, be able to do some sort of uh, collaboration on a project, any video project at some point in the future. Like, we're super huge on helping established entrepreneurs share their story and attract their ideal clientele. Like, that's kind of our focus. And yeah, I mean, obviously, we'll have more talks about it in private and see what we can work out in the future. But it would be a huge privilege for us to be able to work with you, and it would be like a full circle cut type of moment. Um, last question.
Yeah.
Where can people continue to follow your journey online?
I would say the best place right now is Instagram. I'm very active communicating with people. Direct message. Follow me. It's Invest with Fits. And yeah, I mean, from there, we're connecting with people to raise money for different projects that we're working on. Connecting with people that want to learn more about kind of like what we're doing within our companies that might have an interest in coming to work with us. A lot of people that are just getting started in real estate and following along kind of like my journey of, quitting my job and moving into doing it full time. I'm going to start sharing a lot more content surrounding that. And yeah, I mean, we're just at the very beginning stages of building out a community surrounding that, that I really, really am excited and passionate about, getting started and growing, because that was the biggest impact for me was taking that step of quitting my job and going into real estate full time and knowing that you're in a community of people that are supporting you and know your goals and know what you're looking to accomplish and kind of building you up and holding you accountable. That's kind of like what I wish I had when I first, was making that leap. So that's what I want to curate and continue to build. And then, having a coaching component with it as well for people that are like, hey, this is cool, but like, I really want kind of some hand holding to make sure that I'm not falling into any, mistakes that could happen that I've already done and been able to shortcut for
Exactly.
people. So those are the people that I love connecting with. And yeah, man, that's the best place to find me.
Right on. And we'll also put we'retheofferteam.com, which is his wholesale company, in case anybody is interested in selling their home fast and with less headaches. And yeah, all left to say is thank you once again, Michael, for being on the show. Everyone who tuned in, if you
Yep.
found any value whatsoever during this episode, please consider subscribing. It'll help us bring on more amazing guests like this. So that's all I got to say today, and have a good one. Thank you so much for tuning in.
This has been a Redbird Studio Productions. Hope you've enjoyed the program.